Welcome, I am Ezra Kane, host of this channel, a philosopher on a quest to uncover and share objective truths in a confusing world. Since the dawn of time, humanity has tried to find answers to the hardest question of all. Some of history's greatest minds, Plato, Aristotle, Epicurus, Kant, spent a long time trying to fabricate an answer. It's human nature to seek understanding of the world around them. I can't live without finding life's meaning, and you, too, will face this question one day. One day. Join me on my journey as I explore the hardest question of all time. What is life's meaning? Chapter 1. A question that's all this time. I was a typical person who only cared about materialistic possessions. Money, fame, luxury were the only keys for happiness. I thought that all philosophical questions were just pretentious and unimportant. Life will prove me otherwise. I was too naive and young. The very next day, I fell ill. I had a severe throat infection that made it impossible for me to eat solid food. I thought that it would be over in a few days and I would be able to enjoy food again, but it didn't. As the weeks went on, I became increasingly miserable, and I started to realize how fragile life is and how quickly things can change. How can one day you can be a normal person living a normal life and the next one live with unbearable suffering? At the 1 month mark, I realized the true meaning of life is fragile. That it was that we will all die. I realized that I, my family, and everyone I knew would one day perish and be forgotten forever. The illness lasted for 2 months, but the realization was far worse. I could not shake the thought of my mind. If everyone is going to die, what's the point in any of this? Why should I continue living and doing anything if it won't matter in the end? This thought consumed me. I really couldn't do anything anymore. Not playing video games, not listening to music, not talking to people. I felt like everything was in vain. I was getting haunted for all of my existence. I quit my job, severed ties with my friends, and did things that I regret to my family. It was not depression, I just knew the truth of life. After a few months of this, I thought, what if life has a meaning? What if life has a meaning despite the untenable guarantee? I felt hope for the first time in many months. I started searching for answers everywhere, anything I could find. But the only answers I found were based on emotions that I could not feel anymore, or religion that didn't align with my logical mind. But my journey did not stop there. I realized that if I could not find an answer from regular people, then I needed to explore the thoughts and ideas of some of history's greatest philosophers. I hope that they had struggled with this question too. What happened then? We'll see. For 2 years, 2 long years, I searched for an answer with little luck. Despite all this, I wanted to try one last thing. With all the knowledge that I had gathered, then why don't tell me my own answer? I would like to clarify that I always have been praised as a smart individual. I held my intelligence in high regard, luckily. Otherwise, I would have been stuck and stayed until the end of my days. But before I share more of my own thoughts, my dear viewer, let's first explore the ideas and beliefs of some of the greatest philosophers in history and see if their answers fulfill my needs. Chapter 2. The greatest philosophers' answers. I will first mention some of the philosophers I was attracted to on my quest to better with their answers, and then I'll explain why they didn't hit the mark for me personally. Let's start with Plato, who was a philosopher in ancient Greece. He was a student of Socrates and a teacher of Aristotle. Plato believed that the purpose of life was to gain knowledge and understanding of the forms, which he believed were eternal and absolute truths. He believed that the forms were the most important things in the universe, and that our ultimate goal should be to grasp them with our minds. He believed that the soul existed before and after our physical death, and thus believed in an afterlife. A soul, then. Next was Aristotle, a student of Plato and a philosopher in ancient Greece. He had a different view in the meaning of life. He believed that the purpose of life was to achieve happiness and fulfillment, which he believed could be attained through living a virtuous life and using reason to understand the world around us. He believed that the key to living a good life was to live in accordance with reason and to cultivate virtues such as wisdom, courage, and justice. Aristotle also believed that the ultimate goal of life was to achieve eudaimonia, which is often translated as happiness or human flourishing. He believed that eudaimonia could be achieved through living a life of contemplation and understanding, as well as through living a life of action and contributing to society. Next goes Epicurus, a philosopher in ancient Greece. He believed that the purpose of life was to seek pleasure and avoid pain. He believed that the key to living a good life was to live in moderation and avoid excessive desires, as these could lead to unnecessary suffering. Epicurus also believed in the concept of ataraxia, which refers to a state of being free from fear and anxiety. He believed that this could be achieved by living a simple life and by understanding the nature of the universe and our place in it. Epicurus believed that the ultimate goal of life was to achieve a state of peace and contentment with what we have. Lastly goes Immanuel Kant, a philosopher from the Enlightenment period. He believed that the meaning of life was to pursue our moral duty and to live according to the moral law. He believed that the moral law was based on reason and that it applied to all rational beings, regardless of their particular circumstances or desires. Kant believed that the ultimate goal of life was to achieve moral perfection, which he saw as the highest good. He argued that this could be achieved by acting out of a sense of duty and respect for the moral law, rather than out of a desire for personal gain or pleasure. Kant also believed that living a moral life was the key to true happiness and fulfillment, as it allowed us to develop our full potential as rational beings. In his view, living a life guided by the moral law was the only way to truly achieve happiness and meaning in life. Now, let's move on to why their answers didn't satisfy me. To help you, my dear viewer, understand my perspective, first, I will explain what death is. Death is the inevitable ending of life that lasts for an eternity and contains nothing forever. To make this easier to understand, think of death as going to sleep while having no dreams and never waking up. That's the best explanation I can come up with for what death is, the only one that aligns with logic and reality. Every other explanation is based on emotions or faith. Plato's belief in the eternal existence of the soul and the possibility of an afterlife did not align with my understanding of death as an eternal state of nothingness. While his belief in the pursuit of wisdom and knowledge as the purpose of life was appealing, the idea of the soul continuing on after the body's death made no sense in light of what death is for me. There was nothing in his belief that truthfully answered the hardest question for me. Similarly, Aristotle's belief in happiness and fulfillment as the purpose of life and his concept of eudaimonia did not fully address my concerns about the finality of death. What's the point of living a happy life if I will ultimately die and be in a state of nothingness forever? Especially considering that at this point in my life I couldn't even feel emotions anymore due to the constant thought of death haunting me. Epicurus' belief in the avoidance of pain and the pursuit of happiness and pleasure as the purpose of life also did not provide a sufficient answer for me. While at that point I had agreed that living a simple and contented life is important, I struggled with the idea that this could be the ultimate meaning of life, when pleasure is meaningless, especially considering that I had felt pleasure in the past 2 years. There was no point in pleasure. Lastly, Kant's belief in the pursuit of moral perfection and living according to the moral law also did not fully satisfy me, as it did not address the finality of death. While I agree that living a moral life is important, I can't see how this could be the ultimate purpose of life, when it again ends in death, into nothing. How can living a moral life answer that? It doesn't. Morals were pointless for me. Overall, while I found aspects of each of these philosophers' beliefs to be appealing, none of them provided a satisfactory answer for me in regards to the finality of death and the ultimate meaning of life. The concept of death as an eternal state of nothingness seemed incompatible with their beliefs, and as a result, their answers did not fully satisfy me. There simply is no other logical explanation as to what death is. As I said, only other answers are based either on religious beliefs or emotional beliefs. So, what is it then? What's my final answer to what's the meaning of life, taking into consideration the weight of death, and ultimately, does it even matter? Did it make a change in my life? That's what we will explore in the final chapter of this video. Chapter 3. My answer and why it matters. What's the final answer, then? First, allow me to explain how I ended up with it. I spent a long time and effort trying to find the meaning of life. There were many answers, but none that considered the finality of death. After much contemplation and discussing my own thoughts, I've come to the final conclusion that I find satisfying and is based solely on logic, as my future own philosophy will require this. At first, I could not come up with anything else. Life had no objective meaning, not one that is verifiable by our current understanding of the universe. I knew that people could choose to live for emotional or faith reasons, but I was just not going to accept that. I cannot obtain faith from a place where there isn't any, and as I have said before, the constant thought of that made me completely desensitized from emotions. I could not do anything for more than 30 seconds before it started haunting me again. My second conclusion was that life had in fact to believe for either emotional or faith reasons. There was no objective purpose in life. I almost had given up in this moment, renegated to believe something I could not. Faith. I faced so many obstacles, people telling me I was just in a phase, that it will go away once I treated my depression. But then, looking back at all my other failed answers, reading them over and over again, I started to think about something. If a bottle has nothing inside of it, is it wrong to fill it up with whatever we want? If life is objectively meaningless, then how can it be wrong to give it my own meaning that will also be 100% objective? One day before the new year arrived, 2.5 years after my realization of what that was, I finally reached my answer. There it goes. The ultimate answer to life's true meaning is that life does not objectively have a meaning, not one that is verifiable. You can choose to live for emotional or faith reasons, but that is subjective to each individual. And thus, whatever meaning you give to life is objectively correct, as life does not have one. Filling an empty bottle with any liquid is correct. It's exactly as it sounds. You are 100% logically correct and cannot be proved wrong about giving your life whatever meaning you deem. I tried for 4 entire days to refute this statement, but as far as my knowledge goes, that's just not possible. Dozens of debates and many hours spent talking with a variety of artificial intelligences after, I concluded that this is irrefutable. So, what happened then? To put it bluntly, my chains broke. I have not had a doubt of that since then. Since now, I have an answer. My problem didn't come from that itself. We all experience it every day we go to sleep. My struggle was that not having a logical meaning made life worthless due to that. But now, with my logical answer to life's meaning, I could not care less about that. The hunt is over. I won. It was like flipping a switch. All my accumulated negative thoughts were gone. In the 10 seconds I realized I could not prove my answer wrong. I have been the happiest ever in my life. I solved all my other problems I had accumulated in 2 years in 1 week, and also spent a bit of time helping people struggling with many problems. It feels like I have won against life. If you embrace my answer like that, you will too get the same results. After all, who can prove you wrong? You are free to do whatever you want in life. It matters. It allows us to live life in a way that is meaningful. I got rid of the worst feeling in life, having no meaning, and knowing that. I learned so much about everything in my journey, and now I will concentrate in giving back to the world. I will develop my own philosophy that uses my own methods, based on logic and objectivity. I have not gone over in life, as I have answered the hardest question of mankind.